Hello, hi, hey, it's your good friend J. Scott Jewell. Here to make a case for NetHack. This is a game that is 30 years old, as you can see up top there. It was first released in 1985, and they're still working on it now. They just released a new version about a month ago. So it's probably the oldest game that's still under active development. And it's one of my favorite games. It's tough to get into because there's kind of a big learning curve for really every aspect of the game. Basically, no matter what is happening on the screen at the moment, there's always kind of something else that it means. And on top of all that, there's no graphics. But despite all of that, I think it's a really great game. So I'll try and take you through some of the basics here. You start out just picking your character, and it's a lot like a D&D style fantasy world. So you get to pick your character's race, whether they're a human, an elf, a gnome, a dwarf, what have you. What role or their class, like wizard or knight or any of those. Gender and their alignment, which is lawful or chaotic or I think neutral. But I usually go with, I don't like to do random ones. For the role, I go with a wizard. You can see there's lots of options here, and every one of them plays a little bit different. Wizards I like because they start with a bunch of magic items, and it's very easy to... well, I wouldn't say easy, but you get a lot of interesting stuff that happens no matter what you do with the wizard. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but it's always interesting. And then for various reasons that only come into play later in the game, I usually play as an elf and a male for no real reason at all. It doesn't make a big difference. Confirm the settings, and then it gives us the brief little story. So after the creation, the cruel god Moloch rebelled against the authority of Marduk, the creator. Moloch stole from Marduk the most powerful of all the artifacts of the gods, the Amulet of Yendor, and he hid it in the dark cavities of Gehenna, the underworld, where he now lurks and bides his time. Your god Enher seeks to possess the amulet, and with it to gain deserved ascendance over the other gods. You, a newly trained evoker, that's me, have been heralded from birth as the instrument of Enher. You are destined to recover the amulet for your deity, or die in the attempt. Your hour of destiny has come. For the sake of us all, go bravely with Enher. So this is us. Screen's pretty basic, so it's basically showing us a top-down view of a dungeon map. Our character is the @ symbol there, and then we can press the semicolon key, and really every key on the keyboard does something or other. Even like H, J, K, and L are used for moving around. So you can see my cursor moving around there as I'm pressing H and L. But if we look at this F symbol over here, that is my pet cat that wizards start with. And that up there, the letter F, stands for fungus or a mold, and that is a lichen, which is a pretty easy monster. Take care of that. And if we press I to go into the inventory, we can see all the stuff I start out with. I get a quarterstaff, Cloak of Magic Resistance, which is very important. Makes a lot of things not happen to you in the early game that would otherwise be very dangerous. And then you get some scrolls, some spell books, some potions, some rings, one wand, and then depending on whether or not the random number generator is being kind to you, you can start off with some tools or music instruments as well. So I've got a scroll of Identify starting out, which is good. That means basically a big focus of the game is on... Oh, there goes my kitten. Big focus on the game is in random things happening to you. My kitten stepped on an arrow trap there and got shot with an arrow. But the other big focus is on basically everything in the game. It's all the same stuff, but its appearance is all randomized. So, care of that guy. So we can see, oh, well, that's a scroll we already know about. There's some money on the ground. Trying to find an item that I haven't seen yet so I can show you what I mean. Some dungeon rooms will have features like fountains, which seem harmless enough. You can stand on them And you have some options to oh, is it just Q? Yeah, Q to quaff. You can drink from a fountain, but there's not actually a good reason to do it. And there's a lot of things that fountains, that can happen at fountains that are definitely very bad. Sometimes, you know, a fount of snakes will pour forth, and that's a great way to die in the early game. But on the other hand, sometimes you'll release a water demon, and the water demon will grant you a wish. So, kind of a toss-up. Not really a toss-up at all. In the long run, it's best to just steer clear. So that lichen I just killed dropped a corpse, and that I can carry around in my inventory for as long as I like. It's very helpful, because another of the many, many things that tries to kill you in NetHack is hunger. Over a certain number of turns. Ooh. Back up here. Take care of these guys one by one in the doorway. Over a certain number of turns. Skip the kobold, eat the jackal. Great. Yeah, so I should explain that all of the movement and action happens in turns in NetHack. So no matter what you do, everything takes a turn or so, depending on your speed. But that means that we can sit here for as long as we like and just talk about what's happening, or really, you know, consider our options before we make any moves. And then you can see down on the bottom there that turn counter goes up every time. A lot of things happen over time, but one of the things that happens is your hunger starts going up until eventually you'll get notifications that you're hungry, and then getting weak from a lack of food until eventually you just starve to death, although there are plenty of ways to get around that. And like I say, got that lichen corpse now, so we'll at least be able to stave off hunger for a little bit. This here is a statue. I zap it with my force bolt. I can shatter it. One of the things to know about statues is that sometimes when you break them open, they can have a spell book inside. So as a wizard, that's something I always try to do if I can. I just gained a level, which basically got my HP and my power points up. Right now we're fighting with a grid bug, which is an interesting enemy, because unlike my character, which I can move up and to the right, you know, diagonally, the grid bug can only move in cardinal directions, so left or right or up or down. So if I'm trying to get away from them, I have a definite speed advantage just on corners. But it usually doesn't matter because they have practically no hit points and do practically no damage. So they're really good first level monsters. And I could eat this corpse we're standing on top of, but I'm not going to, because I don't remember how long it's been sitting there. And if corpses have been left out for too long, they will rot. And then eating them is obviously not a good idea. Ooh, there's a grave here. Something is engraved on the headstone. Read, and everyone died. Boo-hoo-hoo. And there's 15 gold pieces. That's good. Yeah, and there will be basically flavor pieces like that throughout the game, where there will be graffiti scrawled on the ground, or stuff written on tombstones that's funny. And basically the end of that text there down at the bottom where it says chaotic is about as much, about as far to the right as a dungeon level is going to go. So it looks like we've more or less explored everything. There's an area over to the left that I'll check just before we go down. And so the early game is a lot of just kind of finding your way and not really doing anything but surviving. Here at the end of this passageway, there might be a room to my left, so I'm going to search. But I just spent 40 turns searching and didn't find anything, so I doubt there's anything there. So let's run over to downstairs. Oh, a couple of grid bugs spawned in the way. Okay, there we go. And so basically you just find the downstairs and head downward as far as you can. Eventually you'll get to the very, very bottom of the game and have to go all the way back up. But we won't get there for a long time if we get there at all. So for these early levels, it's a lot more about just exploring and making sure you've looked through all of the map before you start going. Ooh, there's a scroll of teleportation and a whistle, which I'm going to try applying this whistle with the letter A. And see, this is one of those situations where the game says something, and that's fine. But if you've done your research or played a bunch, like I actually know that because it produced a high whistling sound, there's another type of whistle, the magic whistle, that produces a strange whistling sound when you play it. And it also has the nice effect of teleporting your pets straight to your side if you have any pets. This is just a tin whistle though, so it just makes noise, which can call your pets over to you, but just at normal walking speed. But what you can do is give the objects in your inventory a name. So I want to call that whistle Tin. And now when I look at it in my inventory, it'll say it's a whistle called Tin. And if I see any more of them on the ground anywhere, it'll also tell me that it's a whistle called Tin. So even without using my scroll of identify, I can use that kind of secondary information to identify items kind of informally. And there's a ton of stuff around the game on that premise. Let's see what's in here. There's an apple on the ground. And then there's the downstairs, which I'm going to go down and then just see what's here and then go back up. Essentially because the game generates everything on the level as soon as you enter it. So as soon as I stepped down here, it generated the whole map and all of the enemies and everything. But it generated that based on my second level experience. So if I go back up here and keep exploring and then run into some monsters and fight them and gain a level, I'll have a relatively easy level 3 waiting for me down below. And searching there did find a hidden passage, which comes up a lot. You'll be walking around and hit a dead end that doesn't make any sense. And usually that means it's time to do some searching to find out where it continues. By the same token, if you're in a room and it doesn't seem like there's enough doors, usually you can search the walls in a certain way to find out where that door is. There's a yellow mold corpse here, and that could be food, but I'm not going to eat it. It has some confusion and stunning effects because it's mildly poisonous. I'll just leave it be. And I think that's everything we're going to get, so keep going down. We do have an extra healing potion. Hopefully we won't need for a while. The spells we've got are a Force Bolt, which is just a general attack, and Detect Food, which can show you where food on the map is. Usually not worth anything in practice. You can kind of find food everywhere by the time you're any good at casting Detect Food anyway. But I'm just going to hit this lichen with a Force Bolt, basically for its corpse. And a clove of garlic is good protection against vampires, of course. Oh, we've got our first shop here. It looks like it's armor, which will have some weapons here. Usually there's nothing great, although there's a pair of boots. Ooh, an oilskin cloak. Some gloves. There's actually some decent stuff in here. Unfortunately, we'll have to identify it before we can go for it. So I do want to know what these boots are. So there's ways to do this just by how much they cost in the shop. Like more powerful stuff will cost more, and you can kind of get a sense of what category it's in that way. But I'm feeling lazy, so I'll just read my identify scroll and figure out what these boots are. Ah, they are jumping boots, which is quite helpful. So I will take them and wear them. So now I have jumping boots on. My armor class goes down a little bit, which is a good thing. And then that's all I really need for now. There's a bunch of funky stuff I could do in here to identify stuff and try and cheat the shopkeeper out of some money, but it's honestly not all that interesting to actually do, as effective as it is in winning the game. So I usually just skip it. Oh, and that message there, you hear the chime of a cash register. That is a clue that there is a shop somewhere on the level. And there's a lot of different kind of ambient acoustics that'll come in and tell you things about the level, like if there's a fountain or if there's a sink somewhere on the level. Stuff like that. You can find out what's in the level without actually going to see it if you hear those dungeon sounds. And there's a boulder here that I'm pushing through the hallway, but there's a monster on the other side of it. So what I can do is just use Force Bolt, smash through the boulder, and hit whatever's on the other side. Oh, and get to level 3. And it says it's a slime mold, but that is one of the many, many options you can set. If we go down and down and down, it should show my fruit name somewhere. Ah, there it is. Yeah, so I have my fruit set to slime mold. So there's just kind of a generic fruit object that you can call whatever you want. And that can have some funny effects throughout the game. Oh, another boulder. And this room is dark inside, so you have to go through piece by piece. Oh, there's that hunger message. Starting to get hungry. Let's eat one of those lichen corpses. And of course it tastes terrible. Most things in a dungeon do. But this room is dark, so we can't see any further than one space in every direction. Step down the stairs, as opposed to this room where it's, fully lit and we can see everything. Yellow mold there, so if I touch it directly, it can stun and confuse me. So I hit it with a Force Bolt and go back upstairs. We do want to, fully explore the level, A, so we know how to proceed. But B, if we have to run back through, we'll know how to get through. Or C, and ooh, I thought it was a lichen, but it was a green mold. Flashed me with acid. Hit it with a Force Bolt. But C, there's always the possibility that there's going to be treasure sitting on the ground somewhere. So you want to make sure you find every room so you can clear out every room. Hidden door. There's a gecko. A box. Let's see if I can open it. It's locked. So there's a couple of options we have there. You can kick the box and just try to break the lock off that way. You can also force it open with a weapon, but either of those have a chance of destroying whatever might be in the box. I'll just leave that there. Normally there's only one staircase going down on a level, but this one has 2, which means that this is a special staircase that goes to these huge underground cavern areas called the mines. And this is where gnomes and dwarves and hobbits all get their mining done. I don't actually want to fight that many guys right now, though, so I will head to the other staircase and try to make some progress that way. And I could eat this kobold corpse, but kobolds are poisonous, and that is the kind of poison that could kill you, so that's a very easy way to die early on. Getting hungry. Let's eat another lichen. Okay. And that message there, you feel strong. You must have been exercising diligently. Basically pushing those boulders around gave my strength stat some exercise, which means that every couple of hundred turns it makes a check to see whether or not you gain stat increases from exercise, and that one must have succeeded. But we're here on level 4 of the dungeon, and I'm going to cut off the episode there. We'll see how far I can get and kind of how much stuff I can show you about the game. Hope you like it, and I'll see you next time.